Very good afternoon to you all. Charles here, Frgnt Daily Chart Analysis, Thursday the 30th of April 2026. Time just approaching 4 o'clock here, local in Milan. So, the day started off a little bit quiet, to be honest, to the charts later than normal due other commitments. Nevertheless, managed to find some what I call Frgnt favorites based on higher time frame analysis, based on the DXY, based on my overall bias, more so higher time frames, looking for price to look to push towards those higher time frame 50 EMAs before the close of business on Friday. Now it looks like AUD USD will now end up in a stop loss, but I think that was a very, very good trade. In fact, almost a textbook trade. And I'm happy to go over that now. As you can hear by my alerts going absolutely bananas, I am definitely out of that trade, and it wasn't break even, so that is a full stop loss for me today on AUD USD. Bit of a shame because I liked the setup a lot, but that just goes to show that a setup on paper is just a setup. Now I'll go through that technically now for you all. So I could have taken this a variety of ways. Based on the DXY, first and foremost, we can see the DXY absolutely crashed through this. Let's call it a nearly level in the market. I wasn't truly convinced that this area here on the 15-minute time frame, that price would actually hold at that area. It's a 15-minute order block in the middle of nowhere, to be quite honest, but the DXY has a great habit of doing that. So as a result of just putting that 15-minute order block in and around that area of the 4-hour 50 EMA, hoping for that 4-hour candle to do something similar to this, breach the 4-hour 50 EMA, find the liquidity underneath, and then push towards the upside and close above that 4-hour 50 EMA. So that was the intention. So nevertheless, we didn't get the reaction that we wanted from that 15-minute order block, but we wasn't really expecting it based on the fact you can see by my higher time frame analysis, what you can see based on the 4-hour time frame bottom left hand chart is the 4-hour order block, and the 4-hour order block in that region, in my opinion, is a 4-hour order block that made good sense to look for potential area for reaction on that DXY from that region. Now the question you'll ask me is why. So if you look at basic price action, we were in a range in this area, broke out that range and made the first high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and then we started to push from that area. In my opinion, this created a higher high. Discounting this bullish or this tremendous candle here, bullish or bearish, whatever it was, it discounted it completely. I perceive this as a higher high in the market, or particularly on the DXY, the index. Therefore, I'm looking for a reaction from that higher low area to push price further towards the upside. As you can see, based on where the 4-hour 50 EMA was at the time of this candle actually being down here, I had every anticipation for this candle to actually look to reject that 4-hour 50 EMA and push up towards the upside, looking to retest the daily 50 EMA and in fact close above it. Now the question behind that is, well, why do you believe that the current daily candle would look to close above that? And I still have that bias. So although I've taken a stop loss on AU, I still believe that the DXY has, let's call it, 8 hours and 54 minutes to fulfill my trading criteria in terms of the strategy that I believe, or at least in terms of strategy that I trade, that as a result of this daily candle closing above the previous day, well, as a result of the previous daily candle closing above the daily 50 May, I have every reason to believe that this current daily candle will also close above that daily 50 EMA. Therefore, as price comes down here, I have the confluence at the time, considering we were within the 4-hour time frame, that the 4-hour would look to reject the 4-hour 50 MA to the upside, and also the daily 50 MA would be used as a support to actually push price higher, although we were printing below it on those intraday perspectives. So back to the 15-minute time frame, that 4-hour order block refined, you can see very nicely indeed that we then come to the only 15-minute order block that is available within that area. Of course, the DXY doesn't always look to follow suit and respect it to perfection, but the aim of the game is to use the DXY as confluence. So if the DXY then prints a beautiful bullish engulfing candle or a bullish candle in and around that region, respecting that 4-hour order block, that's what's important. And as you can see, price took off, and then as I still believe, but although having that stop loss on AU, I still believe price is well looking to do that. However, The downside to the current position now is that we've closed below that 4-hour 50 EMA. So the 4-hour 50 EMA now in terms of DXY is now to be used as a target, as a result, or not so much a support for the position. However, we still have, as I've mentioned previously, 8 hours and 53 minutes to use the daily 50 EMA as a confidence to take price higher. So I'm still very much so bullish on the DXY despite everything that we have at the moment. You can see that weekly order block potentially doing the business, looking to push price in terms of Thursday, Friday rather, pushing price back up towards the upside, towards that weekly 50 MA for potential rejection, slightly down to then close in the realms of around the weekly 50 MA and just above the daily. So at the moment, it's still looking good for the DXY in terms of long positions. Now, considering I'm looking to take the DXY long, I am now in the market to obviously use that DXY strength to take a trade in terms of the cross pair, i.e. GU, EU, and AU of what I've already taken AU today already. Now, the first thing I'm looking to do is now understand, does my structure on those cross pairs actually make sense to be shorting? If not, I have a bit of a conflict. Now, you can see here also we've got range on that daily time frame down towards that daily 50 MA that price hasn't actually rejected just yet. I understand we're getting the move away from it, but what I'm expecting to happen is price pull down a little bit further into that daily 50 MA, and that's where ideally I would have been looking to manage the position. Now, what I can see here is the first degree of conflict. Now looking at GBP US dollar. I haven't taken a short position, but I was lining a short position up in all honesty. However, as you can see at how this current or the previous 4-hour candle has closed, it has put a bit of a spanner in the works, if not a major spanner in the works. And what you can see is previous 4-hour candles close above that 4-hour 50 MA. So now I'm expecting, as we're seeing, price to close, pull back, retest that 4-hour 50 MA, and then potentially push towards the upside. So that's not really good news in terms of looking to take a short. However, what I must understand is how is that 4-hour structure looking to support my short, and do I have the range to manage a short position back down to that 4-hour 50 MA before I could then look to expect a reaction from it back towards the upside, i.e. we've broken above, pull back into, and then make that higher high, perhaps into a much better area for the long-term short on GU, and then we've got more of a range down to the daily 50 MA, and also more range to manage price action back towards that 4-hour 50 MA before we were to encounter a bit of a hold up. So it's still making sense. Although I'm not in this position, I can understand the ways in which potentially I can look to take a GU shorts potentially sometime soon, but currently not at the moment, I'm afraid. So I'm just going to have to get rid of that for now. So what else we have scalping for the rest of the day? Considering it's 4 o'clock, not too many hours left to play with, to be quite honest, before I sign out with trading for the day. I'm just going to skim the charts for you guys to have a quick look alongside myself to see what we have. So GCAD, very interested in taking a long position. Again, the downside to GCAD longs is that we can see on that daily time frame clearly range bound. Clearly, again, we can see on the daily time frame that the daily 50 MA is keeping price down. It's keeping price in and around this area. And you can see as a result of the conflict, i.e. the daily order block wants to push price higher. However, the daily candles are really failing to break and close above that area. Now, once we superimpose that range-bound market on all intervals, you can see here that actually we're simply still looking for clues on the lower time frame to then confirm our higher time frame bias. So, although we're looking for GU shorts, we're looking for EU shorts, looking for AU shorts, GCAD longs is potentially lining up. However, the best way to take this position, in my opinion, is wait for that bullish candle to close above that daily 50 EMA, and then we're in the same realms of what I've been explaining previously. Once you've got that close above, you're looking for price to then retest the EMA to take price higher. That would make absolute sense. I think GCAD at the moment could be a little bit premature, and that's really cemented by the fact of the 4-hour 50 MA. We've got a couple of clues, i.e. we've had a range-bound market on the 4-hour time frame. We've had a break out of that range, i.e. creating the first high in the market. Prices then come back down to find some liquidity by way of session lows, and we failed, in my opinion, to then create a higher high. So that's the downside. And in fact, all we've done is found ourselves back in that range on the daily time frame. So definitely at the moment, GCAD, although it looks okay to the eye, using technicals, it's not quite ready, I'm afraid. Nevertheless, I've got the desired setup on how I would like to take that trade, but you can have my word, I won't be taking that long position today. I feel that a little bit too risky. However, what we could have, as I said, if we get that bullish closure above that daily 50 MA, if you check to the top right-hand chart, what you can see is how the weekly 50 MA is going to come in and help that position long. We're looking to reject that weekly 50 MA for the week, of which we're doing perfectly. We did it last week. Price failed to break and close below that 50 MA, and the current weekly candle has also breached it. It started to trend slightly below it, as you can see here on the lower time frames, and we're looking to reject it. So we've got a couple of hours of today's candle on GCAD, 6.5 hours, or 6 hours 47 minutes, for hopefully that daily candle to close above, hopefully the range in its entirety, at least give us a fighting chance with GCAD longs by closing above the daily 50 MA. And of course, the best case scenario is give us a beautiful bullish engulfing for us to look at the imbalance long on that daily candle tomorrow. So GCAD, nothing at the moment, as I've said, but definitely shaping up nicely. If we do get a daily candle close above, using the daily and the 50 EMAs to take price higher for the end of the week, and that I believe would be a nice position. And as a result of having that bullish daily candle closure, what we will see is price then developing on the lower time frames, pull back into those imbalances tomorrow, and then we'll be off to the races, in my opinion, for a nice high probable setup as a result of also having that trend broken on the 4-hour time frame. So that's GCAD at the moment. Nothing today. GJ, missed a beautiful short. I mean, I was in the short last night, and I got taken out due spreads again. So not a great evening, not a fantastic start to the day. But as I keep explaining, GJ, I was trading EG. So GJ for me at the moment, I'm just actively testing my strategy with GJ. I haven't traded GJ for a very, very, very long time. Therefore, I'm just applying myself using all my entry criteria, all my entry setups, or rather my setup models at very low risk to see how GJ is reacting. What I can say I'm happy to see is that much of the same of what I've explained previously, you can see it. Excuse the illustrations. I was explaining GJ to a small community earlier this afternoon, and we can see just here how where price is respecting the EMAs. We can see where the liquidity may well lie. We can see as a result of the 4-hour 50 MA that we're reluctant to take shorts from and around this area, and in fact the best position for the short was up at these highs. So I was using the wick imbalance in the top right hand corner from 2008 or July 2008, wick imbalance, looking for the liquidity to step into the market. Had a nice break of structure on the lower time frames, looked for the short, and then got stopped out overnight, unfortunately. Break even, to be honest, so it's not the end of the world. So that's GJ. Euro US dollar, where do I lie at the moment? So Euro US dollar looking good so far on the 4-hour time frame. I like how price is trending. You can see clear lower lows and lower highs in the market. Here's a low that's illustrated for you all. Here's a low, lower high. We've now created that lower low trending alongside the 4-hour 50 MA, so it's very, very, very good. However, again, if you take your attention to the bottom right hand chart, look at how the daily 50 MA is coming to pretty much upset the party. We're now trading from the daily 50, the 4-hour 50 EMA in line with 4-hour structure, but I need that range down to the daily 50 EMA. So I believe I have the range, enough range to take the short position, but what I don't like and why I haven't taken a short position on EU, even from this area here, top left-hand chart, you could see as price broke Asia, came back into an area of imbalance, looked for a confirmation for a short, which would ideally look like a nice position. I didn't like it as a result of by the time price had come back up, we had already tested the daily 50 MA. We had already created what I perceive as the low in the market on that daily time frame, judging by the fact that you can see the wick already created. So at one point in time, this daily candle was down here. So therefore, that's pretty much my take profit region, meaning that I now expect the daily candle that has already pushed this low to then come all the way back up and then respect the fact that I want to short it again and then close below the daily 50 MA. It's just not realistic based on my strategy. Therefore, EU, unfortunately for me, was not taken, but still, I stand by the reasons for not taking it. And at the moment, I don't see that it is a half decent setup, providing we don't have that close below that daily 50 MA. So at the moment, EU is not looking like a position I'm looking to take today either. Hopefully, we can get a break below that daily 50 MA as a result of DXY. Hopefully, the bullishness stepping into the market again, which will, of course, drive those cross pairs down. So just a bit of patience to be explored for now. Tomorrow is a brand new trading day, and we'll see how we fare. UCAD, I was interested in UCAD. However, again, understanding that I'm expecting US dollar, or rather the DXY, the index longs, to come out of the market, I don't really want to be trading against my overall bias. So it's one of those where, although I foresee that my highest probable setup could well come from these lows, it doesn't mean that I'm going to short down from that area. Also, if you look at the fact that my cross pairs are indicating shorts, i.e. GU, EU, and AU are indicating shorts, I shouldn't also be seeing a short on a US dollar pair either. It doesn't make any sense. So therefore, as you can see, as a result of having that amount of conflict, I've had to be quite picky in the trades that I'm looking to take, just so it continues to make sense. Now, looking at the weekly time frame, I am indeed looking for a long position at some point. You can see here by tomorrow, I need this weekly candle to respect this weekly order block and reject it to the high. So it's doing a good job. I like where price is at the moment on that weekly time frame. Hopefully we find the liquidity and imbalance below that weekly time frame to push price higher, and understand that actually we are in favor of understanding that we do have room towards the upside, i.e. the weekly 50 MA by tomorrow. Understood at the moment, price is closed below the 4-hour 50 MA, and actually price looks pretty good on the 4-hour time frame. So we've got a lot of conflict at the moment. We've got the lower low, lower high scenario, lower low continuation. And actually I took a UCAD short yesterday, which was a pretty good trade, to be honest. Took around about 3% out of the market, and that was simply based on an Asian range setup. I wasn't able to use my higher time frame confidence to take that as a result of actually trading in, or I wouldn't be then trading in line with my higher time frame order block. So I cannot short into a weekly order block, recognizing that the weekly order block should actually be pushing price higher. So at the moment, nothing for UCAD either, despite UCAD moving in a direction of travel that I believe it should do in order for the pullback long. It's just not something that I'm able to take at the moment. So that's UCAD. EG, nothing on EG. And UJ, again, UJ clearly range bound, understanding how the dynamics of a range works, very, very clearly looking to short. However, again, it's not something that I wanted to short. Recognizing that the dollar is potentially looking to strengthen, I figured, well, there's no real need to take a short on a US dollar cross pair. So at the moment, not really too much is going on for me in the market. So hopefully that the DXY finds its strength again. Looking for GU potentially to find a reaction up at those highs. Looking now to start cleaning this chart up a little bit more and understanding, is the DXY ready for a turnaround long now, potentially up at these highs for a nice higher time frame directional position. We've got a decent amount of range down to the 4-hour 50 MA for management, and then the daily 50 MA as target. AUD USD wasn't to be. However, perhaps if price looks to continue up once we get the confirmation on the DXY using the cross pairs also as confluence, then I may well re-enter an AU short, because I very much so am aligning with the higher time frame bias, particularly the fact that tomorrow is Friday, and that's pretty much the last day for the higher time frame bias to really take effect and be of any use. So that's the rundown, everyone. I hope it makes sense. What else can I say? Taking a stop loss live on video is something that I'm very comfortable to do. It happens, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles from time to time. So hope that makes sense, everyone, and thank you very much for your support across all the channels. I do appreciate it. I see all the comments, I see your messages, and I do appreciate it. Well, take care. Until the next video, all the very best. Charles.